The homeless man I left to die yesterday just walked into my hospital room as my neurosurgeon. I'm lying here paralyzed from the chest down, staring at Dr. Samuel Blake, the same man whose brain surgery I refused 24 hours ago when he was covered in dirt and reeking of the streets. My name is Dr. Jonathan Hayes, and I'm about to learn what it feels like to beg for your life. Yesterday started like any other day in my perfectly ordered life. I was finishing my morning espresso in the doctor's lounge at Presbyterian General when my pager went off. Emergency surgery, trauma bay 3. When I walked into that trauma bay, I expected the usual. Car accident victim, maybe a construction worker, someone with good insurance who could afford my $500 per hour surgical fee. What I didn't expect was the smell. The man on the gurney was maybe 40, maybe 60. It was hard to tell under all the grime and matted hair. His clothes were layers of stained fabric held together by hope and safety pins. The stench of unwashed flesh and cheap alcohol made me want to vomit. Dr. Hayes, the resident said, looking relieved. Subdural hematoma. He was found unconscious behind Murphy's Diner. Looks like he fell and hit his head. He needs surgery immediately or what? I asked, already knowing the answer but wanting to hear it out loud. He'll die. I looked at the man's chart. No insurance, no fixed address, no next of kin. John Doe, number 47 for the month of October. Where's Dr. Richardson? I asked. Richardson handled the charity cases. Vacation. You're the only neurosurgeon available. I stared at the homeless man lying unconscious on my table. His breathing was shallow, his pupils uneven, classic signs of brain bleeding. But all I could think about was my daughter Emma's private school tuition that was due next week, my son David's soccer camp that cost more than most people make in a month, my wife Rebecca's charity gala where I'd promised to donate $50,000 to look good in front of her friends. This man couldn't pay for any of that. I'm sorry, I said, setting down the chart. I can't operate. The resident blinked. Dr. Hayes, this man needs stabilization, not surgery. Give him mannitol, start mechanical hyperventilation, keep him comfortable, transfer him to County General when a bed opens up. But sir, County General is 3 hours away by ambulance. He'll never make it. I was already walking toward the door, thinking about Emma's school play tonight. She was playing the lead in Peter Pan, and I'd promised to be there. Important things. Things that mattered. That's not my problem. Dr. Hayes. The voice stopped me in my tracks. It came from the gurney. I turned. The homeless man's eyes were open, looking directly at me. For a moment, they seemed clearer than they should have been for someone with his condition. I understand, he said quietly. His voice was educated, articulate. Not what I'd expected from someone who looked like he'd been living in alleys. You have a family to provide for. Something about the way he said it made my chest tighten, but I pushed the feeling down. He was right. I did have a family to provide for, a family that depended on me making smart financial decisions. You need to rest, I told him. The medication will help with the pain. Will it help with the dying? I didn't answer. I walked out of that trauma bay and went back to my scheduled surgeries. A tech executive's wife needed a benign tumor removed. A pharmaceutical heiress wanted a consultation about preventive surgery. People who mattered. People who could pay for Emma's education and David's future. That evening, I went home to my estate in Westchester, kissed my kids goodnight, and told my wife about the important surgeries I'd performed that day. I didn't mention John Doe, number 47, until this morning. I was driving my Porsche to the hospital, mentally planning what I'd say to Emma about her Peter Pan costume that still needed adjustments, when it happened. One moment, I was checking my watch to see if I'd make my 7 a.m. surgery. The next moment, I was hanging upside down, watching my own blood drip onto the shattered windshield. The last thing I remembered before losing consciousness was Emma's face in the photo on my dashboard. She was smiling, missing her 2 front teeth, holding the acceptance letter to Manhattan Prep Academy, the school that cost $60,000 a year, the school I'd worked 16-hour days to afford. I woke up 12 hours later in a hospital bed, staring at acoustic ceiling tiles and wondering why I couldn't move anything below my chest. A spinal cord injury, they told me. C6 complete transection, the kind of injury that turns world-renowned neurosurgeons into quadriplegics. That's when he walked in. The homeless man from yesterday looked completely different. Clean-shaven, hair washed and trimmed, wearing scrubs that fit perfectly. But it was definitely him. Same dark eyes, same quiet voice that had asked if medication would help with dying. Hello, Dr. Hayes. He pulled up a chair next to my bed. I'm Dr. Samuel Blake. I'll be handling your case. The room started spinning. You can't be a neurosurgeon? He smiled, but there was no warmth in it. Yale Medical School, class of 96. Mass General residency. I spent 8 years with Doctors Without Borders before coming back to the States. But yesterday, I couldn't form the words. Yesterday, I was testing something. A theory about human nature I've been working on for the past 6 months. He opened a tablet and showed me a newspaper clipping. Dr. Samuel Blake returns to Presbyterian General as Chief of Neurosurgery. The article was dated 3 days ago. I've been watching you, Dr. Hayes. Watching how you choose your patients. The pharmaceutical heiresses, the tech executives, the senators' wives. Always the wealthy ones. Always the ones who can pay for private school tuitions. My throat felt like sandpaper. How do you know about Emma's school? About David's soccer camp? About Rebecca's charity galas where you bid $50,000 on silent auctions to maintain your image? He pulled out a folder thick with photos and medical records. I know everything about your perfectly ordered life. 6 months ago, I started an experiment. I would disguise myself as a homeless person and present to different emergency rooms with a legitimate medical emergency. I wanted to see how doctors would respond when faced with someone who couldn't pay for their children's futures. Dr. Amanda Foster at Mercy General performed emergency surgery on me without hesitation when I presented with appendicitis. She stayed until 3 a.m., making sure I was stable, even though her daughter had a dance recital the next morning. Dr. Robert Sterling at City Hospital bought me a sandwich with his own money while explaining my treatment options. Dr. Helen Carter at St. Mary's held my hand and promised everything would be okay, even though she thought I was just another homeless addict. He looked at me steadily. And then there was you. I had other patients. My voice came out as a whisper. You had a choice, and you chose to let me die because my death wouldn't affect Emma's tuition payments. Dr. Blake stood up and walked to the window. Your spinal cord was severed at C6. Complete transection. Without immediate surgery, the damage will be irreversible. Then operate, I whispered, thinking about Emma's school play tonight, about how I'd promised to be in the front row cheering when she flew across the stage as Peter Pan. I'm sorry, he said, using my exact words from yesterday. You need stabilization, not surgery. The blood in my veins turned to ice water. You can't. You took an oath. I did take an oath. The same oath you took. The one you forgot yesterday when you decided my life wasn't worth risking your family's lifestyle. He walked toward the door. Wait, I tried to shout, but my voice cracked. Please, Emma has her school play tonight. She's been practicing for months. David has a championship game this weekend. Rebecca, she's pregnant. She doesn't know yet. I was going to tell her after Emma's play. Dr. Blake stopped with his hand on the doorknob. John Doe number 47 had a family too. Did you know that? He had a wife in Rwanda who hasn't heard from her husband in 3 months. 2 daughters who send letters to the Red Cross hoping to find their father. I'm sorry, I said, and for the first time in my life, I meant it completely. So am I. He opened the door, then paused. Dr. Hayes, you're scheduled for surgery in 20 minutes. Dr. Foster from Mercy General is flying in to perform the operation. She's the best trauma surgeon on the East Coast, and she volunteered her time when she heard about your case. She's missing her own daughter's birthday party to save your life. I stared at him in confusion. But you said... I said you needed stabilization, and you do. You need to stabilize your understanding of what it means to be a doctor. Dr. Blake pulled out a small recording device and set it on my bedside table. Yesterday, when you refused to operate on me, you said, "That's not my problem," when told I would die. This device recorded our entire conversation. I've made copies. My stomach dropped. A recording of me refusing emergency surgery to a homeless man would destroy my career, my reputation, everything I'd built. What do you want? I want you to remember something. When Dr. Foster operates on you in 20 minutes, she's going to save your life. Not because you can pay her, not because you're famous, but because you're a human being who deserves to live. He picked up the recording device. This goes away if you spend the next year working at free clinics. Every weekend, every holiday, every day off. No payment, no recognition, no media coverage, just medicine. And if I refuse, then this recording gets sent to every medical board, every hospital administrator, and every news outlet in the country. Let's see how your private practice does when everyone knows you let a man die because he was poor. Dr. Blake opened the door. Oh, and Dr. Hayes, John Doe number 47, didn't die. Dr. Richardson came back early from vacation and performed the surgery at County General. He's recovering nicely and asked me to give you a message. What message? Thank you for teaching him that not all doctors are heroes. Some of them just play heroes on television. He left me alone with that thought for exactly 20 minutes before Dr. Foster arrived to save my life. 3 months later, I was working at a free clinic in East Oakland, learning how to practice medicine with patients who paid me in handshakes and promises to take their medications. Mrs. Garcia brought me tamales when I successfully treated her grandson's asthma. Tommy Rodriguez gave me a drawing he'd made of me as a superhero after I removed a splinter from his finger. Maria Santos cried when I told her the lump in her breast was just a cyst. These people didn't care that I'd once charged $500 an hour. They didn't know about my estate in Westchester or my Porsche or my reputation in medical journals. They just knew that when they hurt, I tried to help them feel better. It was the first time in 20 years that I remembered why I'd wanted to be a doctor. On my last day at the clinic, Dr. Blake showed up. He looked exactly the same as he had that day in the trauma bay. Clean, professional, confident. How was your year? He asked. Educational, I said. Learn anything? I thought about Mrs. Garcia's tamales, about Tommy's drawing, about the thank you notes that covered my office wall. I learned that medicine isn't about the money. It's about the moments when you get to tell someone they're going to be okay. Dr. Blake nodded. Good, because I have an offer for you. He handed me a letter. Presbyterian General is opening a new emergency medicine program for underserved populations. They need a director, someone who understands what it's like to see patients as human beings instead of profit margins. I stared at the letter. It was a job offer. Salary, $180,000. Less than half what I used to make in my private practice. Why would you recommend me for this? Because, Dr. Blake said, sometimes the best teachers are the ones who've learned their lessons the hard way. I took the job, not because I had to, but because for the first time in my career, I wanted to. 6 months into my new position, I was working a late shift when they brought in a homeless man who'd been beaten and robbed. Multiple fractures, internal bleeding, the works. His chart showed no insurance, no fixed address, no next of kin. John Doe number 73 for the month of March. I looked at the man lying on my table, unconscious and alone, and I remembered another John Doe from another night when I'd been a different person. Prep surgery 1, I told my team, and call Dr. Foster. Tell her we need the best orthopedic surgeon she knows. Dr. Hayes, the resident said carefully, this man can't pay for surgery. I was already scrubbing in. That's exactly why he needs it. As I walked into surgery, I thought about the recording device that Dr. Blake had returned to me 6 months ago, unplayed and unmarked. I'd kept it as a reminder, not of what I'd done wrong, but of what I'd learned to do right. Sometimes the most important surgery you perform isn't the one that saves a life. It's the one that saves your soul. And sometimes the patient who changes everything is the one who teaches you that every life is worth saving, even when that lesson comes in the form of a homeless man who turns out to be the best surgeon you've ever met.